Welcome to Game and Grains, the whiskey gaming channel. I'm your player one, Richard. And guess what? I got a bottle of good times. Now, this has been something that has been on my list for a while. Not this specific bottle, but I've always wanted to get something from Good Times. Now, I've heard that they have some amazing barrel picks that they do and great finishes. And so when I was at Spillway Wine and Spirits, I picked up this guy. Now, I already know that it tastes great, but I wanted to open it and share it with you. So grab your controllers, pour yourself a dram, and let's get into it. Now, Good Times is actually under the umbrella of Cox Creek Distilling. Now, I believe that they are a non-distilling producer. They will go out and seek barrels, bring them in, and then put the whiskey into secondary cask. They have several different names or whiskey brands under their umbrella, from Good Times to Old Zach, and I believe they have a third one that is called Old Ridge. Now, Good Times has been on my list for quite a good time now. Now, they, like I mentioned, finished their whiskey in secondary cask, and so no bottles are really going to be the same. A lot of their stuff is going to be geared towards store picks or like group picks and things like that. And that's exactly where I got this specific bottle from. When I was on my trip to Spillway, I knew that they had Good Times on the shelves. I just didn't know what the finishes were. And so when I arrived, they actually had two choices. Now, I really wanted both. But again, the good old wallet can't always give you what you want. And so I had to pick one. Now, they had one that was a Neapolitan, which I believe was Mexican vanilla, a strawberry brandy, and then I forgot what the chocolate component was. And then they had this one. This is their caramel apple casks. And it is finished. It says single barrel bourbon whiskey finished in caramel and apple brandy cask. It is at barrel strength and distilled in Indiana. It has a proof point of 118. Now, when I was at Spillway, they only had one bottle out. I don't know if this was their last bottle or not. When I went to the tasting bar, the gentleman had given me just the last little bit of what was in their bottle that they had open. He said something about grabbing another bottle, but I never did go see him actually walk out to get said bottle. So this could very well be the last one. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get into this. Now, like I said before, they do not distill on their own. When I was looking at their website just a little while ago, they had things from Bardstown and other distilleries in Kentucky. And like I said, this one is distilled in Indiana. Well, that, I believe, is MGP. All right, I'm being too particular with this lid. Now, I will go ahead and tell you that, like I mentioned before, I did get to sample this at the store. I did not try the Neapolitan. I was in a hurry, and so this was the only one that I tried, but it is really good. So we're going to go ahead, pour it into the glass. All right, we got it in the Glen. Let's go ahead and get into it. So in on the nose, the first thing that I'm picking up is a really strong and prominent caramel note. Now, I'm assuming that that is probably from that caramel brandy. Now, I don't drink brandy. I have had a couple of brandy finished whiskeys, but this is what, if you could take an actual caramel candy and put it in a liquid form, this would be, at least on the nose, what I would think of. Now, to me, a caramel note from a whiskey versus an actual candy are slightly different. This leans to me a little bit more towards caramel candy. So you do get a slight apple note. That would be probably the secondary note that I'm picking up on the nose. If you could take like a midline between a green apple and a red apple, this would be pretty much on par with that. Leaning a little bit more towards that red, a little bit sweeter versus that green. So let's go ahead and get in on the taste. Cheers. So it's almost like you could take that caramel apple sucker from your childhood. If you could turn it into an adult beverage, that would be what this tastes like. So the very first thing that you get, just like on the nose, is a very strong caramel note. As it starts to, that caramel note starts to transition, you do get that slightest bit of apple, and then there is some ethanol flavors that are there. It is very punchy as far as those liquor notes that are there, but that caramel and apple kind of balance it out. So we got a little bit more in on the Glen. So let's go ahead and try it again. Cheers. So I almost get a little bit of that wood influence there. It was interesting. So as I pulled it up to take a sip on the nose, I almost got more of that apple meat note. I want to say applesauce, but maybe like unsweetened applesauce. That sip was a little bit different than the first. I got a little bit more of those oaky notes that you would get from those casks than the caramel that was there. Now, usually whenever I drink whiskey, if something's been in a secondary cask, those wood tannins tend to dry out my tongue, and that's happening at least with this pour, just kind of in the middle of my tongue. I can feel it just kind of constricting a little bit. But this is a really good whiskey all around. Now, I think that this would probably pair good with its namesake of maybe like a caramel apple lattice pie with maybe a side of vanilla ice cream or something like that. I think that these two would be great. This would definitely be an excellent dessert type whiskey. So if you happen to be in the Spillway area, and if they happen to have any more of this particular one, be sure that you check it out. I would imagine that all of Good Times whiskey would be phenomenal. I've seen tons of different offerings online from store picks and stuff like that. There was one, I think it was like a hot honey or a hot caramel version. I've seen Mexican vanilla bean, Good Times. So there's lots of different offerings and stuff like that out there as well. All right, guys. Well, I certainly hope that you enjoyed this video. Thank you for sticking until the end. Please do all the YouTube-y things. That really just helps to draw awareness to the channel, helps me grow and to reach more people. And then down in the comments, if you would, leave me, let me know, have you tried anything from Good Times? Is it something that that you enjoy? What offerings have you had? All right, guys, thank you for sticking until the end. I'm your favorite player one, Richard. Have a good one.